The Manson Family Murders were some of the most gruesome and infamous crimes in American history, marking the end of the 1960s counterculture era. The shocking nature of the murders, the bizarre cult mentality, and Charles Manson's twisted ideology made this case one of the most widely covered true crime stories ever. Part 1. Who was Charles Manson? Before we dive into the horrific murders, let's take a look at the man behind the madness, Charles Manson. Early life and criminal background. Charles Mills Manson was born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio. His mother, Kathleen Maddox, was a 16-year-old runaway and alcoholic. He never knew his father, and his childhood was filled with neglect, crime, and abuse. By age 9, Manson had already been arrested for petty crimes and auto theft. By his early 20s, he was a career criminal, spending most of his life in and out of prison. The birth of a cult leader. In 1967, after being released from prison, Manson moved to San Francisco during the hippie movement. He became obsessed with the Beatles and interpreted their songs as prophetic messages. Manson used his charismatic personality and psychological manipulation to attract young, vulnerable followers. He claimed to be a spiritual guru, offering love and enlightenment, but in reality, he was building a cult. Manson and his followers, now known as the Manson family, moved to Spahn Ranch, a rundown movie set on the outskirts of Los Angeles. There, they lived off the grid, practiced free love, drug use, and ritualistic mind control, and became completely devoted to Manson's twisted ideology. Part 2. The formation of the Manson family cult. Before the murders, Charles Manson built a commune of devoted followers, known as the Manson family. Manson had a magnetic personality and manipulative charisma, which he used to brainwash young, vulnerable individuals. Many of his followers were runaways or outcasts from middle-class backgrounds, seeking freedom and rebellion from society. Manson fed them drugs, controlled their diet, sleep, and sexual relationships, and convinced them he was a messianic figure. By 1968, Manson and his followers settled at Spahn Ranch, a former Hollywood movie set in Los Angeles. Here, Manson tightened his grip on his followers, encouraging them to detach from reality, abandon morals, and view him as a divine leader. Key members of the Manson family. Charles Tex Watson, Manson's right-hand man and the main executioner in the Tate-LaBianca murders. Susan Atkins, one of the most devoted followers, later bragged about the murders in jail. Patricia Krenwinkel participated in the Tate and LaBianca murders. Leslie Van Houten helped kill Rosemary LaBianca. Linda Kasabian acted as the lookout during the murders, but later testified against Manson. Part 3. The Manson family's twisted plans and the Helter Skelter prophecy. Manson's twisted ideology was based on a race war prophecy he called Helter Skelter, named after a Beatles song. What did Manson believe? He thought a race war was coming, where Black Americans would rise up and kill white people. After the war, Black people wouldn't know how to rule, so Manson and his followers would emerge from hiding and take control. He believed the Beatles' White Album contained coded messages about this prophecy. Since the race war wasn't happening naturally, Manson decided to start it himself by committing brutal murders that would be blamed on Black people and ignite societal chaos. This led to the heinous murders of Sharon Tate and the LaBianca family. Part 4. The investigation, capture, and trial. Initially, the police did not connect the Tate murders to the LaBianca murders. However, the case broke wide open when Susan Atkins bragged about the murders to fellow inmates after being arrested for an unrelated crime. Investigators linked Tex Watson's fingerprints to the Tate murder scene. Linda Kasabian, a Manson follower present during the murders, became the star witness, exposing Manson's full plan to the world. The trial of Charles Manson and the family, 1970 to 1971. The Manson trial was one of the most bizarre and publicized cases in American history. Here are 4 key memorable moments of the trial. 1. On the first day of trial, Manson cut an X into his forehead, saying he was shing himself out of society. His followers did the same, reinforcing their cult-like devotion. 2. Manson tried to attack the judge. At one point, Manson jumped over the defense table, lunging toward Judge Older with a pencil. The judge later carried a gun in court for protection. 3. Bizarre behavior by Manson's followers. Female Manson family members sat outside the courthouse chanting, singing, and threatening witnesses. They shaved their heads and carved X's into their foreheads to show loyalty. 4th star witness, Linda Kasabian. As the lookout during the murders, Kasabian never participated in the killings. She testified against Manson and the family, providing damning details about the killings. The sentencing. On January 25, 1971, Manson and his followers were sentenced to death for multiple counts of murder. However, in 1972, the California Supreme Court abolished the death penalty, reducing their sentences to life in prison. Part 5. The media frenzy and cultural impact. The Manson family case captivated the world. The media sensationalized every detail, turning Manson into a twisted celebrity. Rolling Stone and Life magazine published major features on the case. The murders were seen as the death of the hippie movement, shifting public perception of free love and drug culture. Manson himself loved the attention, playing into the image of a madman and cult leader in interviews. Part 6. Manson's infamous interviews. After his conviction, Manson continued to gain media attention, giving disturbing interviews that fueled his mystique as an unhinged cult leader. Most notorious interviews. 1971. First interview from prison. Manson claimed innocence, saying he never killed anyone but was blamed for society's sins. 1981. NBC interview with Tom Snyder. Manson laughed hysterically, spoke in riddles, and made nonsensical statements, showing signs of psychopathy. 1986. The Look Into My Eyes interview. He stared into the camera, making creepy gestures and bizarre philosophical statements. Claimed, "I am what you made me." 1994. Diane Sawyer interview. Sawyer confronted him with the horror of his crimes. Manson laughed and danced in response. These interviews solidified Manson's reputation as one of the most disturbing criminals in history. Part 7. The aftermath and legacy. Manson spent over 45 years in prison, never showing remorse for his crimes. He became a cult figure, inspiring books, movies, and even copycat crimes. Charles Manson died on November 19, 2017, at age 83 from natural causes. Final thoughts. The legacy of Charles Manson. Manson never killed anyone himself, yet he orchestrated some of the most brutal murders in history. He proved the terrifying power of manipulation, brainwashing his followers into committing unthinkable acts. Even decades later, his name still haunts popular culture. The Manson family murders were more than just a crime. They were a symbol of how dangerous a twisted ideology can become. And that is the horrifying true story of the Manson family murders.